for yourself. Just move away from the madness of the outside world. As you feel your mind start to calm, just gently start to draw your hands into heart center. So you're bringing the thumbs into the middle of the chest, meeting in Anjali Mudra. Just take another deep breath here and set an intention for your practice this evening. Your intention may be something as simple as just keeping the mind open, being open to new opportunities. Now blinking the eyes open. Let's slowly inhale the arms up towards the sky. And then pushing out through the fingertips, just separate the hands, palms facing each other, perhaps gazing up between the hands, ground down through the sit bones. Let's release the arms out to the side. Now just turn the palms to face down. So the arms are out at shoulder height, pushing out through the fingertips. Draw length into the spine. Let's release the right hand down onto the mat. Just walk those right fingertips over and just roll over towards the left side. So you're pushing out through the left fingertips, perhaps gaze underneath that left palm. Just feel a deep stretch into the side waist. Now pushing out through the right hand, let's just inhale, sweep that all the way up. As the hands are overhead, push out through the fingertips, palms facing each other. And again, releasing the hands down to shoulder height. Pushing out through the fingertips, keeping our shoulders strong. Releasing the left hand down to the mat. Let's walk those left fingertips a little bit further away. Stretch out through the side waist. Make sure that right sit bone's engaged onto the mat. You push out through the right arm, gazing underneath that right palm. Now slowly drawing that back to center. Again, just pushing out through the fingertips, lengthen up to the sky. And this time we're hinging forward. So you're drawing in TP the hands down onto the mat in front of you. So rolling forward with the sit bones. Inhale, gaze forward. As you exhale, just see if you can walk those fingertips a little bit further away. So you're trying to lengthen the chest out onto the mat ahead of you. Releasing the sit bones down onto the mat. Keeping the arms active. Draw the shoulders away from the ears and the shoulder blades up towards the waist. Inhaling. And just exhaling, allowing everything to melt down. Now slowly start to TP the hands all the way back. We're just going to release the legs out in front of us. So instead of cross-legged now, the feet, the soles of the feet are met together. You're sitting forward with the sit bones. So we're going to come into our butterfly posture. So the knees are rolling out to the side. So option one is just to hinge forward with the sit bones, just grab the feet, take the gaze forward, and just hang out here, allowing the knees just gradually inch down to the mat. Or option two is perhaps thread the arms underneath the legs, grab hold of the top of the feet. Just lift the tailbones back and lower the crown of the head down. So just take the variation that suits you. You don't have to go all the way down. All that matters is you feel it on the outside edges of the hips. And you're just allowing the torso just to rest down towards the mat. Try not to carry too much tension in the upper body. Just gradually allowing the knees just to roll out and inch down towards the mat when they're ready. So having a nice deep up through the outside edges of the hips. You probably feel something into the inner thighs. Now slowly starting to walk the hands back. Let's just straighten out through the left leg. This time you're going to bend the right leg a little bit more, and you're going to draw the right sole of the foot in towards that left inner thigh. So if your knees all the way up here and you want to rest it onto something, this is another opportunity for you to use. Perhaps if you've got a block or a bolster or a cushion, you can rest your right knee onto the prop. Just stack the chest towards that left leg. Let's inhale, sweep the arms all the way up to the sky. And as we exhale, we're just going to TP the hands down onto the mat ahead of us. So flexing out through the left toes, drawing the left toes back towards the face. Let's engage the quadricep. And let's just gently see if we can fold down over that left leg. So we're stretching out onto the left hamstring. We're equally opening up into the right hip. Inhaling, gazing forward. Just exhaling, releasing that down as the muscles allow. Just have a few breaths here. Try not to carry too much tension in the upper body. Just see if that right knee's rolling down towards the mat. Just have a nice stretch out into the left hamstring. And slowly starting to push back through the hands. Let's slowly draw that up into seated. Just bending that left knee. Now we're going to take the right heel onto the left thigh. So you're flexing through the right foot. So you can have the hands behind you with the fingers facing towards the bottom, just sitting up nice and tall. So for some of you, the left leg might be out quite a far ways. For some of you, you may prefer to walk that left foot in a little bit further. Or for some of you, you may want to grab the front of that left shin and just inch that left leg in a little bit further. So you want to feel a really deep opening up now through the outside edge of that right hip. If you keep the right foot flexed, you help protect the knee. So just take it into the variation that suits you. So just having a few breaths here, just making sure that you're not rounding down through the lumbar spine. You're drawing the chest towards that right shin. Just use the hands behind you, if the hands are behind you, just to push the chest forward. Now slowly starting to inch the legs away. Let's gradually bring that down to the mat, gives the legs a little shake. And let's take that over to the other side. So now bringing the left leg in, we're going to roll that left knee out to the side, left sole of the foot against the right thigh. Just stacking the sternum towards that right leg. See if you can draw the right toes back towards the face. Engage the right quadricep. Let's inhale, sweep the arms up. Then as we exhale, hinging forward, just keeping the hands down off the mat ahead of us. Inhaling, gazing forward. And then exhaling, just see if you can fold down a little bit further. Perhaps you inch your hands a little bit further down the mat. Perhaps you grab hold of the foot. Perhaps you grab hold of the ankle or the shin. You're trying to lengthen the upper body along that right leg. You're taking a nice deep stretch into the right hamstring. You're opening up through that left hip. And stack the sternum towards that right knee. Just pushing out through the sit bones, grow the length. Gazing towards the ankle or towards the toes. Just have another deep breath here. Exhaling, see if you can release down a little further. And inhaling, drawing that all the way up into seated. So we're going to come into our seated pigeon again. So right foot placed onto the floor. We're going to bring the left ankle onto that right thigh. So you're flexing out through that left foot, allowing that left knee to roll out to the side, perhaps taking the hands behind you. So the fingertips are facing towards the bottom. You're sitting up nice and tall. You're trying to draw the chest towards that left shin. So you can stay there, perhaps you walk the right foot in a little, or perhaps you grab round the right leg and walk that in a little further. So just take the variation that suits you. You want to feel it deep into that left hip socket. So you do some great external rotation into the hips. It'll all bode well for later. So just have a few breaths here. As you inhale, make sure you're not rounding down through the spine. And as you exhale, you're just drawing the chest towards that left shin. So let's just slowly start to walk that right foot away. If you've walked it in, let's gradually release the legs down onto the mat, just give the legs a shake. Okay, so just giving the hips a rest for a minute, let's just work into the hip flexors. So for those of you who practice with me regularly, this is one of my personal favourites at the minute. So I'll just turn to face you so you can see what I'm doing. You plant the hands down either side of the hips. Just flex out through the left foot, but lift the right leg about 6 inches off the mat, pointing the right toes. So using the hands behind you, make sure you're not rolling down through the spine. You engage the core, draw the navel into the spine. We're going to release the right leg out to the side. And then exhale, make a semicircle and bring it back to centre. That's it. Inhale, drawing out to the right. Exhale, semicircle and bring that back in line. Let's do 3 more. Inhale, roll that to the right. Exhaling, drawing it back, sit up nice and tall, keep the core engaged. 2 more. Inhale, right. Exhale, draw centre. Let's make that the last one. Let's make this a nice big semicircle. Inhale, releasing right. Exhaling, semicircle back. Perfect. Sitting forward now, flexing out through the feet, just push out through the hands. Now let's lift the left leg, point the left toes. We're going to inhale, release that out to the left. Exhale, semicircle and draw that all the way back. So we're doing exactly the same on the other side, keeping the core engaged. Inhale out. Exhale home. Engage the pelvic floor. Inhale out to the left. Exhale, semicircle back. Inhale left. I think we're on 4. Exhale, draw that back. Last one. Inhale, draw that to the left. Exhale, releasing back. So as you release that back onto the mat, again, flex through your feet. Just bring your thumbs into your hip flexors. Just have a little tiny massage out here. Just releasing any tension that may have built up before we move on to the next thing. Okay, so now keeping the hands down either side of the shins. This is all for strengthening your hip flexors. Pushing down through the fingertips. Let's inhale, lift the legs up. So the fingertips are released onto the mat. You're engaging the core, drawing the navel into the spine. You shouldn't feel this in the lumbar spine. Leaving the hands down onto the mat, we're going to lower the legs halfway. And then exhale, draw them back up. Inhaling, halfway lower. Exhale, draw them up. That's it, making into Navasana. Inhale, halfway lower. Sitting up nice and tall. Exhale, release to the sky. I can't remember how many we've done. We're going to do 2 more. Inhale. Exhale, release. Last one. Inhale. Exhale, draw that up. Hold it here. Inhale. And as you exhale now, just slowly lower the legs down towards the mat. Again, sitting forward with the sit bones, flex out through the feet. Just bring the thumbs into the hip flexors. Just have a little massage out here. Perfect. Now rolling the legs over towards the left. Let's meet into our all fours tabletop. So spread the fingers wide, stack the shoulders over the wrist, turn the inner elbows to face the short edge of the mat. We're going to inhale, take the gaze forward, dip the spine down, tip the tailbone up to the sky. As we exhale, let's just round the spine, separate the shoulder blades. Inhale, gazing forward. Exhaling round. Now slowly drawing this back to a neutral spine. Let's just start to walk the hands back. So you're sitting onto the heels, just briefly. So we're going to do a stretch where you take the hands behind you, lift the hips up. If you find that particularly challenging, this is another opportunity for you to bring in a prop. You can take the hands onto the prop and just use that to lift the hips up a little higher. So you want to feel a nice deep stretch across the front of the hip flexors and the front of the quadriceps. So the fingers are facing towards the bottom. You've got a nice long straight line from the knees up to the shoulders. Perhaps take the gaze up towards the sky. If the neck's okay, you can allow the head to drop and gaze towards your back wall. So you should feel it all the way down the front of the body. Let's take a few breaths here. Just taking a nice stretch out. And then slowly bringing the gaze back first. Let's slowly lower the bottom back towards the heels. Again, let's take the hands forward. So spreading the hands now shoulder width apart. Let's just tuck the toes. We're going to lift up, draw the chest back towards the thighs, and then just meet into a downward facing dog. So your feet are hip distance apart, you're just having a little pedal out, just releasing the feet, and perhaps stretching out through the calf muscles as well. So just gently bending one leg, bending the other. That's it, nice. Perhaps have a little sway, gaze underneath each arm. Now taking the gaze forward, let's just bend the knees. Let's step all the way up to the head of the mat and just take a forward fold here. So you're releasing the crown of the head down. Perhaps you can grab alternate elbows. Just lift the tailbone up to the sky. Just release the crown of the head down. Perhaps you prefer to have a little gentle sway side to side. Just feeling the stretch go all around the back of the legs. Now slowly pushing out through both feet. Let's gradually draw that all the way up to standing. So we're just going to work with balance, but this will also help the hip flexors. So sometimes your balance is rubbish and sometimes your balance is good. My balance personally isn't the best, but however, hands onto hips, engage the core, pull in through the pelvic floor. We're going to draw the right leg up. You're trying to align that right knee with the right hip. So your hip flex is what's keeping it in place. You're drawing the navel into the spine, engaging the pelvic floor. So option to stay there, or option to see if you can straighten out through the right leg, point the right toes, keep the gaze at something steady that doesn't move. Again, your hip flex is what's keeping the leg up into the air. Nice deep breath in. And then slowly on the exhale, let's draw that all the way back down to standing. Perfect, let's take that to the left. So grounding down, spreading the right toes out on the mat. Let's inhale, lift that left knee up. So try and align the left knee with the hip. Again, tuck the tailbone under slightly, engage through the pelvic floor. Draw the navel into the spine. Option to stay here, or option to straighten out through that left leg. Point the left toes, stand up nice and tall. Keep the standing leg strong. Keep the gaze at something steady. Focus in on your breath. So on your next exhale, let's slowly start to bend that left leg. Let's just release the left foot down onto the mat and perhaps give the legs a little shake. Perfect. Just taking your flow now. We're going to inhale, sweep the arms all the way up to the sky. Really push out through the fingertips. As we exhale, we're going to hinge that forward. So you hinge from the hips, take the gaze ahead. Now inhaling, gaze into the short edge of your mat. Take the hands onto the shins, push the tailbone back. And then as you exhale, you bend the knees, plant the hands down. Let's step back and meet into a high plank. Engaging the core, pushing out through the heels, draw the navel to the spine. Let's slowly lower the knees down onto the mat. We're going to lower the chest and chin, and then rolling forward. Let's draw that either into a cobra, or you can bring it into a full up dog. So if you bring it into a full up dog, the toes are resting out onto the mat behind you, so you're resting onto the top of the feet. You're allowing the hips just to sink down, you're pressing out through the arms, and you're really trying to push the chest in between the hands and take the gaze up towards the sky. So you should feel a nice stretch down the front of the body, including the hip flexors. Just see if you can hold it here for a couple of breaths. Perhaps you release the knees down onto the mat if you find that too strong. You're taking a back bend, be opening up through the front body. Now let's slowly start to tuck the toes again. Let's just release the bottom back towards the heels. Pressing into the toes, let's draw that all the way up into a downward facing dog. And just have another little pedal out here. So just doing a little bit more work onto the hips. We're going to release the right leg up behind us. So you're coming into what's called a three-leg dog. You draw the chest back towards the standing leg. We're going to bend that right knee and draw the right heel round to the outside edge of the bottom. So you're stacking the right hip on top of the left, perhaps gazing underneath the right arm, and you're meeting into a baby scorpion. So you're opening up through the right hip. Now slowly bringing that right knee back to center. So you're now bringing the right knee into the chest, and you're going to head it up to the front of the mat. So just take whatever method suits you to get that right foot up to the head of the mat. Release and align the left heel. So as you align the heels, you're bending through the right knee. So you're trying to make the right thigh parallel with the mat. And then we're rolling from the left arm all the way overhead, and we're going to meet into a nice warrior two. That's it. So you're pushing down into that right foot, keeping the torso central. The arms are out at shoulder height, palms facing down. Just take a glance down at that right knee. Make sure the right knee's not rolling in. And then think about that left hip. Let's try and roll the left hip out. Make the back leg active. Okay, from here we're going to take this in to a Trikonasana or triangle pose. So we start to straighten out through the right leg, hinge forward, and then you're going to drop the right hand down onto the right shin or ankle, draw the left hand up to the sky. So again, you're still rolling that left hip over on top of the right. See if you can gaze up towards the left hand. One nice long straight line from the right fingertips up to the left fingertips. Then lastly, we're going to re-bend through the right knee. Rest the right elbow onto the right thigh. And lastly, roll that left arm all the way overhead. So you're now pushing out through the left fingertips, pushing back through the outside edge of that left foot, rolling the left hip on top of the right, perhaps even gazing underneath that left palm. So again, opening up through the hips. Okay, so let's slowly start to release the left hand down to the mat. Let's bring the right hand on the outside edge of that right foot. Let's step that all the way back and then meet back into a downward facing dog. So we're going to just have a little pedal out here, just releasing any tension. Okay, so let's take that to the left. So as you take that to the left, you lift the left leg up to the sky into a three-leg dog, and then you bend the left knee. And you're trying to bring the left heel round towards the bottom. Take the gaze underneath that right arm. Somebody said it looks like the Manx flag, this posture. It's your baby scorpion. You're stacking the left hip on top of the right. Now slowly bringing that left knee all the way in. We're going to plant it up at the head of the mat. So just get it there whichever way suits you. If you need a helping hand, just feel free to do that. Leading with the right hand, bending through that left knee. Let's windmill that all the way up and meet into our warrior two. So you're rolling the left hip out, the right hip out. You're rolling that left knee out. The left knee is not rolling in. So you're opening up through the front of the body. Arms are out straight, palms facing down. Nice. Okay. So let's take this into a Trikonasana. So triangle pose, you start to straighten out through the left leg, which is your front leg. Hinge forward, and then just allow that hand to drop either onto the shin. Doesn't need to go all the way down to the ankle. You push out through the right fingertips, push down through the left hand. So you're making one nice long straight line. Both legs are straight. But most importantly, rolling, externally rotating that right hip on top of the left. Feel a deep opening up through the right side of the body. Now lastly, let's bring it into our side angle. So we now re-bend through the left knee, bring the left elbow onto that left thigh, and then windmill that right arm all the way overhead. So you're pushing out through the right fingertips, pushing back through the outside edge of that right foot. Nice deep stretch down the side waist, but you're still opening up, externally rotating that right hip. Perfect. Okay, now releasing the right hand down onto the mat. Let's bring the left hand on the outside edge of that left foot. Let's step that all the way back, up the mat, and knee back in your downward facing dog. Again, just have a little pedal out here. Sway the hips side to side. And we're now going to meet into a yoga squat. So taking the gaze towards the hands. You're going to step the right foot on the outside edge of that right hand. Step the left foot on the outside edge of the left hand. Release the bottom down and bring the hands into your heart center. So for those of you who struggle with, this is a nice one to perhaps use like a cushion or a blanket or something. If your heels are all the way up in the air, then you can rest your heels onto something like a block or a blocks, cushions, bolsters, whatever. Otherwise, allowing your heels, sometimes if your feet are too close together, it's harder to get your heels down onto the mat as well. That's it. So we're meeting into our yoga squat or malasana. Just using the arms inside of the legs, just to open up to inside of the legs. Bring the hands either into heart center and Anjali Mudra, or if you want to work deeper into the posture, you can make fists with the fingers and then just bring the fists together. Sitting up nice and tall, take the crown of the head up towards the ceiling and releasing the sit bones down towards the mat, just hovering them off the mat. Take another breath here. Exhaling, release. Okay, now planting the hands down ahead of us. We're going to lift the bottom up. Release that left leg out to the back of the mat. You're now going to take the right heel onto your mat and the right toes onto the floor by the side of you. So you're coming into a lizard posture. You're just going to gradually just have a little rock forward and back and start to roll onto the outside edge of that right foot. So you're opening up through the right hip as you see if you can gaze at the sole of your right foot. Keep a little bit of movement because you're just assessing where your body's feeling tension at this stage. So as you move around slightly, you can just perhaps feel tension in the hips or into the hip flexors. Then lowering the left knee down to the mat. Let's just flatten the left toes. So really now try and roll onto the outside edge of that right foot. So you're just deepening the posture here. So you've got an option just to stay here, perhaps up onto the hands. Perhaps you might want to bring in a bolster and rest the elbows down onto the bolster. Or perhaps you may want to just rest down onto the elbows and fold all the way forward. So the main target areas in this pose is just the outside edge of that right hip as you roll onto the outside edge of the right foot. But you're also stretching out through the left hip flexor. So you're just allowing that left hip just to gently roll down towards the mat. Try not to force anything, just allow the body just to open up on its own. Just have a few breaths here. Okay, so for those of you who've actually released all the way down, let's start to re-engage the hands onto the mat. So slowly start to bring yourself back up. And from here, we're going to take it into our pigeon posture. So you're going to walk that right foot to the left side of your mat. And then you're going to release and align the right shin with the short edge of the mat. So for those of you who feel that the bottom's really high up in the air, again, you can take perhaps a block or a brick or an encyclopedia, if anyone's still got those sort of things, I don't know. You just bring the block underneath your right sit bones. That's it. So just take the variation that suits you. If you're really struggling with the left leg out straight behind you, make a bend in that left knee, but try and square the sternum and the chest towards that right knee. So as we square forward, you bring the left hand in front of the right shin, bring the right hand to the side of the knee. Inhaling, gazing up. You may want to stay here, or you may want to try and hinge forward and fold down. So you're drawing the chest towards that right thigh. Perhaps you may want to release the body weight all the way down and really open up. So you should, again, feel it in the outside edge of that right hip. You should feel something into the left hip flexor as you try and roll that left hip flexor down towards the mat. So just take a few breaths here. Just releasing into your pigeon pose. So when you're holding these postures for a period of time, it's important that you reconnect with your breath. Use your breath just to deepen the posture. With each inhalation, just visualize where you're carrying tension. And then with each exhalation, just see if you can sigh it away and release down a little bit deeper. If you can keep the breath lengthened, it helps teach the body to open up. Right, so for those of you folded forward, let's slowly start to release that up. We're going to make it worse now. So this is optional. This is called the double pigeon. So you bring the left foot forward. Nobody likes this one, including me. So you take the left foot onto the right knee or towards the right knee, and then hopefully at some stage the left knee will roll down onto the right foot. But as you can see, Even after 8 or 9 years of yoga, I'm still yet to get that. So taking the hands behind you, sit forward with the sit bones. You want to feel it deep into the hip sockets here. You've got probably a reasonable gap between the back of your calf muscles and your perineum. So you may then want to TP the hands forward and see how that feels, because if you change the angle of the upper body, it changes the tension into the hips. You may perhaps want to release down onto the elbows, or you may want to release all the way down. So just take the variation that suits you. Don't be put off by going forward, because often I actually find going forward easier than I do sitting up straight. So just see, but you want to feel it deep into the hips. So if that's what you're feeling, you're in the right pose. If you're not feeling anything into the hips, then you need to move the feet or the legs a little bit further away from the perineum. So just have a few breaths here. Believe me, we're not going to stay here long. So when you hold a really deeper posture, you really feel it into the hips. Really try and lengthen out through your breath here. It's important you don't start to make the mind feel stressed. Okay, so if you folded forward and start to reconnect your hands onto the mat, let's slowly start to draw that up into seated. Let's just bring the feet out. So as you bring the feet out, mat width apart, take the hands behind you. We're just going to lower the legs over towards the right, and then exhale, draw them back through centre, and then just lower them over to the left. So it just helps you perhaps just release a little bit of tension. This is a little windscreen wiper. Okay, so now let's meet back in Andalasana. So using the hands behind you, feet are out, mat width apart, bring the hands back into the middle of the heart centre. Let's meet back into our yoga squat. Tailbone down towards the earth, crown of the head up towards the sky. Lengthen out through the spine, keep the pelvic floor engaged. It's very useful when you travel abroad, this pose. Okay, so planting the hands down now. Let's take the right leg back. So we're going to come into our winged dragon on the other side. So you're walking those left toes to the outside edge of the mat. The left heel's onto the mat. The left toes are onto possibly the floor beside you. Start to roll onto the outside edge of that left foot. You just have a little bit of movement as you start into these postures. So you're going into it nice and slowly. You're just seeing how the hips feel. Perhaps you're feeling a little bit different on the left from the right, so you work deep into the right side and not into the left yet. And then when you're ready, you're going to slowly release the right knee down to the mat, just flatten the right toes. And again, now just really see if you can have a glance down inside the sole of that left foot as you roll onto the outside edge. Okay, so you may just want to stay up here with your hands on the mat. You may want to rest your hands onto a bolster or a pillow, or you may want to release the elbows down onto the mat and just continue to roll onto the outside edge of that left foot. You should really feel it in the front of the right hip flexor as you lower that right hip down. You're also going to feel it in the outside of that left hip, particularly if you can roll further onto the outside edge of that foot. So try not to hold your breath in any of these postures. If you feel your breath's really shortened, then you've probably gone into the pose too deep. It's much better to ease into a pose, gradually allow the body to open up, and then deepen it when you get there. Now, so for those of you who've released down onto the elbows, let's slowly start to reconnect the hands with the mat. And this time we're going to come into our pigeon. So you're walking that left foot all the way over to the outside edge, the right side of the mat. Again, if you need to take a prop underneath the left side of your bottom, just grab that and move it across to that side of the mat. The right leg ideally is out straight behind you, but if you need to have a bend in the knee, then take one. Just stack the sternum towards that right leg. You've got the right hand in front of the left shin and the left hand out by the side of the knee. As you inhale, gaze up. Perhaps you prefer to stay here, or perhaps you can come down onto your elbows, or perhaps release the whole torso down towards that left thigh. So again, you're feeling it into the outside edge of the left hip. You probably still feel something in the right hip flexor. Just allow the body just to rest down. So you're just using the weight of the upper body just to release the tension in the hips. Okay, so slowly pressing out through the hands if you folded forward. Let's slowly start to release that right leg forward. So again, we're coming into our double pigeon. So the back of the left calf is away from the bottom. You're then going to stack the right foot on top of the left knee. See if you can inch that right knee down towards the left foot, and you keep eating into it. It's like a wide cross-legged. It's also called fire log. It's called lots of different things. Double pigeon. So you can bring the hands behind you. Just so you can sit forward of the hip, sit forward of the sit bones. You'll feel it deep into the hips. Or perhaps you can TP the hands forward and see how that feels. I personally find it easier folding forward than I do sitting up straight. Perhaps you may want to walk the hands out a little bit further, and perhaps you may want to fold all the way down. So just take the variation that suits you. As long as you can feel it into the hip sockets, it's doing its job. And this is a really good time when we find comfort in our discomfort. So in order to help stretch out through the body, improve the mobility in the joints, sometimes you have to work to a point of tension. Have slight uncomfortable periods, holding postures. But usually it's worth it. A very good teacher of Martha's and mine was always say, use it or lose it. Okay, so when you're ready, let's slowly start to release that all the way up. Be glad. Let's bring and release the legs out. And again, if it feels nice, just take your windscreen wiper. When you slowly lower the legs over towards one side, bring them back to your centre, and then just lower them over to the other. That's it, nice. Okay, so we're just going to give the hips a little bit of a break now. As we come down onto the mat, I just want to show you, we're going to take you into bridge, and then I'll show you a posture you can finish with if you've got a bolster. So just rolling yourself down onto the mat, just bring the back down onto the mat. Have the feet around hip distance apart, so you should just about to touch the heels. Planting down through the hands. We're going to inhale, lift the hips off the mat and meet into our bridge. So as you push into the heels, engage the glute muscles. So you may just want to release the palms of the hands down onto the mat and hold it here. Or you may want to come with me where you release the arms all the way overhead. Rest the back of the hands onto the floor or the mat behind you. Really push into the heels. You're opening up through the front of the body. And allowing the shoulder blades to roll down onto the mat. And keep length in the back of the neck. Try and keep the gaze up towards the ceiling. Or perhaps even close your eyes if you prefer. If you've released the arms overhead, let's slowly start to draw those all the way back. And then just gently wheel the spine down towards the mat. Just one vertebrae at a time. Bringing the knees into the chest, let's just cross the right leg over the left. Grab hold of the knees with the hands. So you're grabbing the left hand onto the right knee, right hand onto the left knee. Draw the thighs in towards the chest. So again, you start to feel it into the internal rotation in the hip. And then just gently walk or shimmy the hands down the outside edges of the legs. And just bring the grasp onto the ankles. So you're trying to bring the heels around to either side of the hips. Keep lengthen the spine, lengthen the back of the neck, gazing either up towards the sky or with the eyes closed. Really try and keep that connection of the right thigh into the chest. So you feel an internal rotation into the hip sockets. Okay, just slowly releasing the hands. Let's just cactus the arms out to the side. Just lower the legs over towards the left and just take the gaze over the right shoulder. Now gradually bringing that back to centre. As you reach centre, let's just uncross the legs and cross them over the other way. So the left leg's crossing over the right. You're bringing the right hand onto the left knee, drawing it into the chest, and then bringing that right leg in behind it. So hook the knees in nice and tight, engage the thighs onto the belly. And then perhaps slowly walk the hands down either side and the ankles up towards the shins. And just bring the heels in either side of the hips. The most important part of this posture is to keep the connection of the left thigh onto the belly. You feel it deep into the hips. So if you start to move the legs away, it becomes a different posture. So just see if you can draw the left thigh in towards the chest. It doesn't really matter where you're holding onto the bottom part of the leg. Now let's slowly start to cactus the arms out to the side. Palms are facing up. And just roll the legs over towards the right and just take the gaze over towards the left. So you just take a gentle twist into the spine. The knees don't have to roll down onto the mat. You can just rest onto the feet. And we're using the core. Let's gently bring that back to centre. Just uncrossing the legs. So if you've got a bolster handy and you'd like to finish with me, then you're just going to bring the bolster in. You're going to sit on to just where the sacrum, so it's the bony bit at the top of your back. So it's the middle of your pelvis. You sit onto the bolster and you just allow the bolster to support the back. So with the feet bent, sorry, the knees bent, the feet down, hip width apart, you're just coming into a supported bridge. So again, you can perhaps roll the arms out overhead, rest the back of the hands onto the mat behind you. Or if you want to work deeper into the posture, you can lengthen out through your legs as well. So the bolster or pillow or whatever prop you're using is just lifting the hips up towards the ceiling. So you're stretching out through the hip flexors. You may be stretching out through the abdomen as well. And then you're releasing out through the chest as you allow the shoulder blades to roll down into the mat. And you're taking what's called a supported bridge. So this is a particularly nice posture. You should be able to hold it for, 3 to 5 minutes. And get a really nice stretch out through the hip flexors. So there's the option to stay in supported bridge if you're adopting that posture. Or for those of you who want to meet into a Shavasana, and just draw the feet out mat width apart. And just allow the toes to roll out to the side of the mat. Just allow the ankles, knees to roll out. It just helps open up through the hips. So you just rest the back of the pelvis down onto the mat. Release any tension you're carrying there. Just allow the palms and inner elbows to face up towards the sky. Rolling the shoulder blades out. Close your eyes. So as you lie in Shavasana, just bringing your breathing back into your normal breathing pattern. Just feel the release of tension. Try and visualize with each exhalation. You're releasing that tension down to the mat. And then feel the body become lighter. The mind become calmer. Just gently start to bring a little bit of movement back now. Just gently rolling through the ankles. Just roll out through the wrists. And slowly start to walk the feet back towards each other. And then engaging the soles of the feet onto the mat. Just gradually walk the soles of the feet up the mat. And while you do so, just push the spine downwards. And then as you bring the knees into the chest, wrap the arms around the legs and just have a real gentle rock side to side or forward and back. Just take any movement that you need for your lower spine. And slowly start to see if we can rock side to side. And eventually rock over towards the right. Just meeting into the fetal position for a couple of breaths. And pushing out through your top hand. Let's gradually start to draw ourselves back up to seated. So you bring yourself into a seated posture. Just bring your hands into heart center. Just giving yourself, as always, gratitude for your practice. It's very important that we make time for ourselves during these difficult times we're going through. We spare some time and energy to work with our body, mind, and soul, using whatever we can to clear the mind, focus the thoughts. Thank you very much for letting me guide you tonight. Have a wonderful Sunday. Namaste.
Real, thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Did we not like double?